astrological signs in regards to archetypes or even psychology? Because one thing that obviously pops up here is the idea of why would the media be using these different astrological signs, especially if they're using the non-common 12 ones. For those who aren't aware of them, how the heck can they still affect us, Michael?
Because that goes into, as you said, the whole question of psychology. That goes into the whole question, and this is, highly esoteric area here, for the student who comes to finally understand that when you're talking astrology, you are in fact talking psychology. And most astrologers, will accept this and agree with this. It's kind of known. But laymen don't know this. They're going to have to start finding out, because when you're dealing with the astrology, it's just two words for the same thing. Astrology is about human beings, it's about man as man, it's about man's consciousness. In fact, the zodiac, I refer to it always as inner. It's an inner zodiac. The outer zodiac that we're talking about is really nothing more than a reflection of a man, his own inner being. This is why they have the Jesus, the main solar being, with his 12 helpers or 12 disciples.
Yes.
This is a fictive scripting of exactly what we're talking about. When the hero, be it Odysseus or whoever, Hercules or Balder or whoever, who has his 12 helpers or his 12 emanations or his 12 trials, this is all about consciousness. But we have forgotten the golden keys that unlock the mystery. Why these corporate people would use these symbols is because they know what we're talking about on this show right now. They know that when they're dealing with the zodiac, they're dealing about you. That these are the 76 or 88 or 12, versions of you.
Yes.
Not just your conscious mind, but your entire being, everything about you. So when they work in archetypes, they are working with the supreme language. They're able to open up your, hard drive. They have access right into the core of who you are on a completely psychic level.
There you go. And that means that they could, if you're not familiar with these ideas or concepts, they could be pulling the strings of you, so to speak, without you knowing what the heck, why you're responding in a certain way or why you're attracted to certain things. And I believe that only through awareness of it, you might be able to catch them when they're, trying to pull your strings, so to speak.
Once you know it, you can. I mean, that's the learning curve.
Yes.
That gives you the immunity. In fact, you can even do more than that. You can actually start using these symbols for your own spiritual positive uplift, which was what they were originally for. That starts when you finally start to grasp that there's no such thing as magic rays from some rocks out there in space. When you really fully grasp, one of my life's main thesis, which is the whole idea of the inner zodiac, the inner oracle. This is what is being assaulted by these people. They have their muddy boot prints all over your psyche, because they know what you don't know. Your temple is wide open to every, derelict to come in and just, urinate on. This is why the people are so psychically deranged today, is because they don't own their own consciousness anymore. They don't have possession over their own being. They've given it away to Madison Avenue and all of these other sorcerers,
yes,
who are using the symbolism. And of course, these sorcerers don't hide it, but what they do is they create a whole media spin, a second level rebuttal of any of this.
Yes.
They're not into esoteric stuff. You're crazy. It has nothing to do with this. These are just symbols that, and people fall for this without any understanding of how this sort of sorcery works.
Indeed. I mean, and again, this should be pointed out that now and again you do get hints of it. People like Clotaire Raphael, he's using, a special kind of marketing, what he refers to as the code, in order to break, and get through with the help of psychology. We have even banks using astrology. So this is beginning to get known, but it's still very kind of esoteric, and many people still haven't got a clue what's going on.
And he's only giving you the tip of the iceberg.
Yes.
The time of your credit card companies use it. They use the lunar cycle, what's known as the lunar cycle, which is a 28-day cycle for each month. Incredible precision into not only using the symbolism of the moon, but again, all of the stellar symbolism is being used right today as a form of sorcery. You do get hints of it. You certainly start getting more than hints of it when you have pattern recognition and you start to see how often it's used in the media and even in certain movies and certain logos and graphics. And also realize that even the word media comes from the people who were called the Medes, an ancient group of people who were specializing in this exact kind of mind control and sorcery.
Yes.
A very ancient group from the Middle East who specialized in this. They were the original Magi coming out of Persia. North of Persia is a place called Media.
Yes.
And the place was known for its witches and its sorcerers and people who are adept at putting spells on people. You know what I mean? So we're in, that business has never gone away. It's the best business that you can get into if once you know what's going on. And these people are doing it, and it's about the control of human minds through nonverbal communication. Simple as that.
And I think that people actually are on so many levels, especially unconsciously, attracted to these, different variations. If we talk about numerology of 12, if we talk about the cycles of the moon, 28 days, this is something that is so hardwired, if you will, into the human being, into the genetics even of a human being. So when these things are going to pop up in the, what I would say, the unnatural world, the man-created world, we're going to identify with them and get a kind of sense of a connectivity with that. What do you think, Michael?
Well, see, the confirmation of that is a female. Look at the female generative cycle. The menstrual cycle is connected to the phases of the moon. Blinking amoeba at the bottom of the oceans, plants that can grow in complete darkness still obey the rhythms of the lunar cycle.
Yes.
And then earlier on we talked about the Druids and the matrix, the geospheric matrix of the Earth. That geospheric matrix, just like the ocean, the energy waves, these are like the veins and arteries and capillaries of a human being. Well, the Earth has these synchronic lines, which are sometimes called ley lines. I remember you had Dan T on talking about the ley lines, remember?
Dan Tatman, yes, indeed.
Right, and specifying that there's some sort of misunderstanding about ley lines and how this whole thing works.
Yeah.
And we've got underground rivers, we've got all these kinds of interlocked matrices of the Earth. They also respond, you see. But matter responds to material energies, and so does the human mind. But the thing is that the human mind also projects its own content out onto the material world. This is what we're not too familiar with. That's what these sorcerers are familiar with. They know that your consciousness also has certain numerological, encodations, certain matrices. From the time of birth, it's just built into consciousness.
Yes.
The 3 and the 7 and the 4 and the 12. I've gone into this in my work. People can go to the Taroscope's website, and I have a web stream there called the Taroscope's Tour. It's actually an introduction for people who are interested in my mystery school teachings. But if they actually go and watch that, we have a thorough analysis of this whole mental matrix and how there is such a thing as the inner zodiac that then gets subsequently projected externally, and then we imagine that it's something outside of ourselves, when in fact it's completely an extension of what is known as man's Merkaba, his own aura. It's an extension of his mental apparatus, you see. And the people who understand this absolutely are the puppet masters who are able to control people by this non-verbal levels of communication and steer your political beliefs, steer your religious beliefs. They can work on the limbic realms of your brain, the mammalian brain, so you're not even aware of it. You're not even aware of it because it's bypassing your conscious circuitry. It's bypassing the superego and the ego's defense mechanisms.
Now, talking about how this also reflects in the external world, we can get into, speaking of geomancy and even into architecture. If we look at the design of towns and cities, there's a heavy use of geometry and astrological symbolism there, in the fountains, in the square, clock towers, etc. Do you think that it's the same motivation that is behind this, that this is the reason why they're using this, you think?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it, because in one way, corrupt as they are, these modern day, sorcerers is basically the only term I can think of that would describe them perfectly, is because I always see what they do as an act of sorcery. Corrupt as they are, they still hold over. Remember, as I said in all my work, these are the cannibalizers and the plagiarizers of an ancient sacred canon. So, but that doesn't mean that the canon is evil or negative.
Right.
So these individuals are misusing this. So their buildings, their parliaments, their institutes, right down to even schools and colleges, but certainly military bases, inland revenues, think tanks, churches, and work has been done on this, but there's so much more needs to be done to really bring this out, because even one of the first men who looked into this, David Ovison, who wrote the fine book, called The Architecture of Our Nation's Capital.
Yes.
He delves into all the Masonic stuff. He tells you clearly and distinctly there that he has not the faintest idea why this is being done. So he's a man who's, gone and measured it, gone and photographed it, talks about it, has delved into archives and memoirs and all sorts of, archives to expose that this is absolutely happening, is then telling you, but I really don't know why these guys would be doing this.
Yeah, and exactly, and he's even, a Mason himself, so one would think that, okay, he knows it all, right? But more evidence in a way that many people are joining orders and things like this and don't have the full picture,
They don't. I have a quote, actually, because Graham Hancock and Robert Beauval delved into the designs of Paris in their book Talisman, and they borrow, this, I think it's the second book from Ovison, and they move on and they talk about the same thing. I have a quote from Hancock from that very book in which he says, it's open to debate as to why these guys are doing it. Basically, he's even throwing up his hands and not seeing it. And that's because these people do not understand the basic facts. That these individuals are hell-bent on the control of human minds. They still haven't got their head wrapped around that. They're still thinking this is some sort of Templar Brotherhood of Light, etc., who are going to work all these wonders for us.
Right.
So, of course, they don't see the underlying motives, you know what I mean? But, you just have to call a spade and realize that they're doing this to empower themselves, so that when they put these filthy estates and hideous suburbs and our bloody schools and all this stuff, it's on geopathic places where, the energy is going to be down. In America, when they build everything on the grid, do you know how toxic and negative and geopathic it is to build on a square sort of matrices?
Right.
Do you think they would go and do that, right? That's because they know that this is the perfect control mechanism for the perfect slave to live in his perfect prison, but it's an ambient prison that he's not aware of. It's only on the periphery of his understanding. He's clueless, and this works as the perfect cage setup. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So they know that if they manufacture your habitat in this anti-organic, spiritualless way that goes against the energies of the earth, if they build their cities like that, if they build their freeways like this, if they put these ugly glass towers, these big phallic, super lit, fluorescent lit, armored buildings, that's going to send a message to people's psyche. So of course when somebody turns around and goes and denies any of this, I look at that person and go, yeah, that's because you're the perfect slave. You're the perfect one you are their perfect mannequin who doesn't even know that it's taking place, so much the control that you're under, you see?
Yeah.
Yeah, it works. It's fantastic. It's an incredible experiment. That's why the man who opens his eyes to this is a perpetual outsider. And he better get used to that. He better get used to the pain and the suffering that comes with being an outsider, because my message is at least you can see it. At least you may have a bit of suffering because of this and to feel like an outsider, but you better always get on your knees and thank goodness that you can actually see what we're talking about here, so that you're not completely, unaware of it and just like a perfect slave,
Yes. I mean, it's, again, we come back to that famous scene actually from the first Matrix movie. Do you want the red pill or the blue pill? And I can offer you no more. The only thing I can show you is the truth, and it's up to you of how we want to deal with that. And of course, many people would want to go back to cloud cuckoo land again and live there because it's safe and it's it's more comfortable, I guess. And it's up to each and everyone how far we want to go. But again, I just want to emphasize that and go back to that idea that astrology, that the suppression of this knowledge, how important that is, especially from, if you consider the ancient religions, or Christianity, that they have to constantly suppress that in order to actually keep this spell upon you. Because if this were widely known and people were beginning to get savvy about this, then they would be able to break this spell that is surrounding them, that this is causing, putting upon people, basically.
Absolutely. Knowledge is your salvation. The greatest, as Socrates said, the greatest evil is ignorance, the greatest good is knowledge, period. We can do like this. We can begin to dive into a little bit about some of the more of the background about this, so to speak, in regards to Egypt. We can talk a little bit more